Part 22. Fantasy, I am the big boss behind the scenes. Author, Guanyun Taoist. Chapter 211. The decree is engraved with the will and orders of the immortal king of a foreign land. As for the content of the decree, it is simple to say. Several immortal kings are going to bring the 3 or 2 proud men from the dark realm to have a discussion with the younger generation in the immortal realm. No matter life or death, there is no malice. Discussing and communicating, no matter life or death, haha, this is not malicious. Xian Wang sneered. The so-called exchange is just an opportunity to find out the reality of the immortal realm under the guise of communication. If the immortal realm side loses, it's hard to imagine what kind of blow it will be. I'm afraid the younger generation in the immortal realm will be devastated and live in fear of the dark realm. Of course, it is just a so-called exchange, and naturally it will not mobilize so many people to bring together 2 ancient immortal kings who have not appeared for a long time. What really makes Xian the reason why the king and the Lotus King gathered here is another content of the decree of the king of the dark domain. Several immortal kings are about to cross the border. You know, because of the existence of the bordering wilderness, the black, although there are many small-scale commotions in the border areas of the realm of, most of them are battles in the human realm. Occasionally, only 1 or 2 immortal realm creatures are dispatched to fight. Immortality in the foreign realm equals true immortal of the fairyland, king of the foreign realm, ancestor equals immortal king of the immortal realm. Ancestor king of the foreign realm, like the immortal king of the immortal realm, is a strong pillar of a world. He will not make any moves easily, but once he is dispatched, he represents the will of the world. Moreover, because of the existence of the heavenly chasm in the borderlands, such as the existence of the royal ancestor realm of the dark realm, there is no way to break the natural chasm and the arrival of the heavenly chasm. But now, the decree from the dark realm says that there will be the arrival of the royal ancestor from the foreign land, and there will be more than one. This I can't help, but the immortal kings of the immortal realm don't take it seriously. I have investigated and found that the chasm is still strong, and even a strong person in the immortal king realm cannot shake it. Is this really true? Or is it the method of the dark realm? Xian Wang was puzzled. As soon as the news came, he went to the border wilderness to investigate. The natural moat that separates the 2 realms is still stable, and the strong men of the immortal king realm cannot pass at all. At most, they can only descend to 1. It's just a wisp of wool. As for the true body, it can't come at all. Perhaps what came was the will of the immortal king, but other possibilities could not be ruled out. The origin of the dark realm is mysterious, and the treasures are endless. Maybe there will be a treasure that can overcome the wilderness. I suffered this loss during the first battle back then. Lian Wang slowly shook his head and said, the Bianhuang Emperor's Pass is the most important line of defense on the periphery of the entire immortal domain. Dozens of epochs ago, there were often immortal kings stationed in the Bianhuang, and they rotated once every era. Because of the existence of the Bianhuang natural mode, at first, the immortal kings in the immortal realm did not take this seriously. But later, when the Lotus King was on duty in the border wilderness of the immortal realm, the natural chasm in the border wilderness was suddenly opened. Although there was no immortal king crossing the border, there were several statues. The immortal king's attacks came across the realm at the same time, as if they had agreed upon it, and they all attacked the Lotus King together. This was a combined attack from several foreign kings and ancestors. Even if it was only for a short moment, it was too sudden. Although the Lotus King tried his best to resist, he still suffered irreparable injuries from the Great Dao. It was also from that time on that no immortal king realm existence was stationed in the border wilderness, but lingered in the fairyland. Continue to stay in the border wilderness. It will only give the opponent every opportunity to defeat you. If you retreat, you will still have a chance to react. It is for this reason that I summoned all the genius masters in the human realm of Xianwang domain to come here this time. Now that the dark realm has taken action, if we continue to remain silent, we will lose the momentum of self-reliance. Xian Wang said in a deep voice. The reason why all the creatures above the supreme realm in Xian Wang domain received Xian Wang's orders this time was naturally because of Xian Wang's summons. The purpose was precisely for this great competition between the two realms. Darkness, the immortal territory, has already taken action. If the immortal territory side continues to shrink, it will definitely severely damage its own morale. Moreover, although there are constant wars in the border wilderness, the entire immortal territory has been at peace for too long. King Xian also wants to take this opportunity. Awakening all living beings in the immortal realm. Tell them that there are still powerful enemies in the immortal realm, and it is far from time to relax their vigilance. On this trip to Bianhuang Daiguan, I went with Taoist friend Xian Wang. Lotus King said slowly. However, your injury. King Xian was about to refuse, but was interrupted by King Lian waving his hand. My injuries are only getting worse. Have you forgotten how I was injured before? I'm afraid that if you go alone, you will fall into the trap of the dark realm. I will go with you, even if I am no longer in good condition, I can still help you a little. As you said, our immortal domain can no longer afford the loss of an immortal king. Lotus King sighed. King Xian and King Lotus were talking silently. But they had no idea that the content of their conversation had been overheard by another person. This person is naturally Qin Mu. After inquiring into the conversation between King Xian and King Lotus, I found out what happened. A thoughtful look appeared on Qin Mu's face. Immediately, he left Xianwang City and headed towards the wilderness on the edge of the immortal domain. After knowing everything, he was ready to start making arrangements. At this time, Qin Mu already had a plan in mind for the layout of the next secret realm. Fantasy, I am the big boss behind the scenes. Author, Guanyun Taoist. Chapter 212. The immortal king realm exists, and with a single thought, one can traverse the world and travel thousands of miles in an instant. Therefore, within a short time, Qin Mu had already crossed to the border of the immortal realm. Although they are extremely far apart, there is still a vast and eternal atmosphere blowing towards them. It was an ancient and majestic city, connected to the sky and the earth, filling the end of the line of sight, as if connected with the sky, surrounding the entire border of the fairyland. It is unimaginable how majestic the ancient majestic city is. It connects the sky and the earth above, and connects the 8 wastelands below. It simply breaks through the limits of human imagination and cognition, and breaks all the truths from ancient times. From a distance, it doesn't even look like a city at all, but like an ancient universe, quietly suspended there. It is also like a prehistoric giant, standing here, guarding the frontier, and defending the fairyland from enemies from the dark realm. It can be said that this ancient and majestic city is the first and last barrier at the border with the realm of darkness. If even this line of defense is broken, the billions of ferocious soldiers from the dark realm can effortlessly cross the border and march straight into the immortal realm. Therefore, this ancient majestic city also has another name, and that is Bianhuang Emperor City, the first majestic pass in the immortal domain. Qin Mu took one step forward and arrived in front of the first city in the immortal realm. He quietly entered the gate and walked in the ancient city, observing everything here while preparing for his next arrangement of the secret realm. Walking in this imperial city, Qin Mu couldn't help but feel a little emotional. The creatures stationed at the imperial pass were completely different from the creatures in the immortal realm. The creatures here, even if they live in the same realm as the creatures in the fairyland, have completely different combat capabilities. Because the creatures here have survived after endless battles. Whether it is their own realm or combat skills, they have been honed to an extremely high level. They are definitely not those in the fairyland. I only know what the geniuses who compete can compare with each other. If a life and death battle really broke out, the creatures within the Imperial City would probably be able to defeat beings of the same realm as themselves in an instant. Of course, powerful combat power is washed out with real blood. Walking in the Imperial City, you can see seriously injured immortal warriors everywhere. They were all injured during the battle with the creatures in the Dark Realm on the border. Every injury is a brush with death. The creatures in the Dark Realm are extremely ferocious, and their moves are all deadly. If you are not careful, you will be killed. Only those who can hone themselves in these brutal battles and survive will become the predator today. Qin Mu couldn't help but sigh. Although the warriors in this magnificent pass were powerful, they were forged with endless bones and blood. Behind them, how many creatures in the immortal realm have already ended sadly and are buried in the wilderness. During this period of time, the dark territory is extremely unstable, and chaos is coming. The immortals from the Dark Realm came across the border with the royal decree, and they simply didn't take us into consideration. It doesn't matter, in my fairyland, didn't King Xian manifest his divine traces in the world? Yes, in our immortal realm, there has been no trace of the immortal king realm manifesting for tens of thousands of years. Now the immortal king has manifested, which is enough to prove the profound foundation of our immortal realm. The Dark Realm wants to swallow up my immortal realm. This is just a dream. In the ancient Xiongguan, such voices of conversation can be seen everywhere. A few days ago, the news that the immortal from the Dark Domain came with the royal decree really made the warriors in the Xiongguan very depressed. Because the fairyland side it has been thousands of years since an immortal king has manifested. Now, facing the provocation of an immortal king, only the immortal king can respond, simply because they are in the same realm, and no one else can do it. But now, in the immortal realm that has been silent for a long time, there are finally traces of the immortal king manifesting, which is enough to prove that the immortal realm still has a foundation, and it is definitely not something that the Dark Realm can easily oppress. This is also the source of the confidence of many warriors in Xiongguan. But, listening to these conversations, Qin Mu couldn't help but shook his head. Is this really the case? These warriors are not at a high level, so their views may be optimistic. But after all, Qin Mu has traveled almost all over the immortal realm. The current situation of the immortal realm, he understands it better than anyone else. If there was no such thing as the existence of the wilderness, I am afraid that the Dark Territory would have brought millions of ferocious soldiers across the territory to conquer the immortal territory. At that time, the immortal territory would not be able to resist at all. But it is definitely no match for the Dark Realm. After staying in the Imperial Pass for a while, Qin Mu finally left the Imperial Pass and truly came to the intersection of the two worlds. This is the place where the natural moat is on the edge of the border. This is an endless desert, one after another, as if there is no end. And in front of this endless Gobi desert is the curtain that covers the sky and the earth, almost dividing the two worlds in half. It is precisely because of this natural moat that the immortal realm can enjoy peace for several epochs. The next secret realm should be set up here. It is expected that the creatures from the Dark Realm crossing over will meet the creatures from the Fairy Realm here. Qin Mu looked at the chasm that separated the two realms and thought thoughtfully. Immediately, he flashed and entered the secret space. Now, after some harvesting in the lower realm, Qin Mu's shocking points have returned again. It has risen back to 1 billion. Therefore, there is no pressure on him to continue to arrange the secret realm. Manifesting the skeleton of a dark and decaying creature. A broken immortal weapon appears. Embodying a wisp of the divine thought of the beginningless emperor. Embodying a wisp of Yetiendi's divine thoughts. A corner of the blood-stained battle robe appears. Qin Mu had already planned the layout of the secret realm, and everything was just a step-by-step arrangement. So just a moment later, Qin Mu successfully completed the layout of the secret realm. Because the secret realm was too vast, it consumed Qin Mu's energy. 800 million shocking points. Next, it is a matter of waiting quietly. Waiting for the creatures from the Dark Realm to cross the border to receive this gift that Chinmu personally prepared for them. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Fantasy, I am the big boss behind the scenes. Author, Guanyun Taoist. Chapter 213. Immortal World, Xianwang Domain. When many masters from the realm of human supreme beings in the Xianwang domain gathered in Xianwang city, Xianwang, who had not manifested for several epochs, finally arrived, manifested his Dharma body in Xianwang city, and brought the desire of the Dark Realm across the border, and fought with tell the world about the competition in the fairyland. As soon as the news came out, it naturally caused an unprecedented shock in Xianwang city. The realm of darkness can be described as a nightmare hanging in the hearts of hundreds of millions of creatures in the immortal realm. Unexpectedly, it reappeared now. However, the many masters from the immortal realm who gathered here were also very confident and even a little eager to try. After all, the immortal realm has not had real contact with the dark realm for several epochs. Most of the creatures in the fairy realm have long forgotten the horror of the creatures in the dark realm. In their eyes, the creatures in the dark realm are at most the same as them. Even if they fight, they have nothing to fear. Therefore, King Xian successfully selected the ones with the most outstanding talents among the masters who gathered here, and took them to the Borderland Emperor Pass, the first city in the immortal realm. Beyond the majestic pass of the fairyland, the world is vast and the desert is thousands of miles away. And at the end of this place, a curtain hanging from the sky, with no end in sight, falls from the distant 9 heavens, dividing the dark realm from the fairy realm, becoming the first and last barrier to protect all living beings in the fairy realm. A barrier. At this moment, in front of the ancient natural chasm that divides the two realms, creatures from the two realms gather here, and the emotion called tension is permeating and spreading on the field. Among them, on the side of the immortal realm, a figure shrouded in the mist of chaos, leading many of the geniuses of the immortal realm, is standing here quietly. This figure shrouded in the mist of chaos is naturally the supreme Xian King in the immortal domain. The other creature standing in front of the chasm naturally comes from the realm of darkness. However, unlike the creatures on the fairyland side, these creatures from the dark realm are born with a dark aura, which is a completely different power from the fairyland side. It makes the creatures on the fairyland side extremely uncomfortable and makes them feel very uncomfortable. A feeling of. Moreover, these creatures in the dark realm looked at the people in the immortal realm with very contempt, as if they had never put the people in the immortal realm in their eyes. That kind of contemptuous look was simply infuriating. And in the center of all the geniuses of the dark realm, there is an ancient sacred cow with a golden body, standing there quietly, with its eyes slightly closed, as if closing its eyes to rest. This ancient sacred cow is extremely magical. It exudes a golden light and is flawless, as if it is made of gold. But above its head, there is a dark aura rising from time to time, converging into the shapes of various ferocious beasts, darkness and terror, extremely weird. This golden sacred cow stood quietly in front of all the geniuses in the dark realm, but no one of the many geniuses behind it dared to question it. This is enough to prove that this golden sacred cow is in the dark realm. What a lofty status it has. Only the geniuses of these dark realms know this. This golden sacred cow is the mount of an invincible royal ancestor in the dark realm. And that ancient immortal king has a great reputation even in the realm of darkness. The immortal king is safe. Pushing across the realms of the 10 directions, rebelling against the chaos of 3,000 heavens, from ancient times to the present, invincible in the world. At this time, above the head of this golden sacred cow, there was an ancient decree, hanging there quietly. The mysterious and powerful aura dispersed, causing the void to distort, and even various visions appeared one after another. That is completely the result of what is recorded in the decree and interacts with heaven and earth. Those who can bring about such results by just writing a few words are naturally the immortal kings of the Dark Realm. Lord Xianwang, my king's intention has been conveyed. I wonder if the competition can begin. The golden sacred cow looked at King Xian and said in a calm voice. Along with the golden sacred cow's voice, the scroll of the immortal king's decree also trembled. It was like a black sun crossing the sky, terrifying and glamorous to the extreme. Don't talk too much. It's just a mount. Is it worthy of talking to this king? What about Enron? King Xian said indifferently. This is not his true body. Enran never came here, he just sent his mount to bring a volume of decree. In this case, King Xian will naturally not greet him with his true body, and he will lose his face in vain. Lord Xianwang, my lord said, there is no need to wait for him to come, the competition can begin now. The golden sacred cow said in a low voice. Why is it that when this king comes, Enran will not come? It's just a mount. Is Enran despising this king by doing this? Xianwang looked at the golden sacred cow with extremely cold eyes. As soon as his heart moved, a huge coercion came from heaven and earth, which made the golden sacred cow fall back repeatedly and even couldn't help spitting out blood. The power of Xianwang, even if it was just a line the Dharmakaya cannot be competed by mere immortals. However, in the face of all this, the golden sacred cow is very calm. It does not dare to resist, and naturally it does not dare to say any harsh words. Even if it is just the Dharmakaya of the immortal king, it is not something that its mere immortality can touch. In fact, if it were not the mount of King Enran, it might not even be qualified to talk to King Xian. Naturally, the golden god bull knows this better than anyone else. King Xian, please calm down. My lord is indeed involved in important matters and cannot arrive in time, but he will arrive in a short time. King Xian, please rest assured. The golden sacred cow explained. The power of the king and ancestor should not be insulted lightly. The golden sacred cow knew that the ancestor of Enran had not yet arrived, which had offended the majesty of an immortal king. At this moment, the only way to calm down the immortal king is to calm down. After all, the existence of this kind of realm may not even bother to actually take action against the existence of the immortal realm before tearing off the face. This time it was a lesson. Xianwang said indifferently, but there was a slight worry in his eyes. The many geniuses who came to the Dark Realm this time were all seen by him. They were indeed first-class geniuses and monsters. It seems that today's battle will, I'm afraid it's inevitable. Fantasy, I am the big boss behind the scenes. Author, Guanyun Taoist. Chapter 214. The specific methods of the competition between the two realms are explained in the volume of Wang Ziu's decree. Each of the two realms selects the 9 strongest geniuses and fights in the wilderness on the border between the two realms. When one person is defeated, the other takes the field, and the final winner can be decided only when one party surrenders or falls. This is a battle between two realms with a blood feud, and it is not a so-called competition at all. Having said that, if it's a normal fight, you can naturally admit defeat if you lose. But this competition is about the reputation of both worlds, and its impact and significance are extremely far-reaching. I am afraid that those who compete will not choose to admit defeat, even if they die in battle. What King Xian brought this time was basically the most powerful genius of the younger generation in this era of the immortal realm. Even if they did not include the entire immortal realm, they were almost the same. These 9 people can basically be regarded as the highest combat power of the younger generation in the fairyland. Now that the method of fighting has been determined, the battle between the two worlds will soon begin. I have practiced Taoism for 2 million years and am immortal in the realm of darkness. Watch me kill you. A genius from the dark realm stepped out, with a majestic figure and a radiant look. This creature from the dark realm was dozens of feet tall, with 4 arms and 3 heads. It looked extremely strange and terrifying. It was only 200 meters tall. After 10,000 years, can one reach the realm of immortality through cultivation? Many geniuses in the immortal realm have shocked expressions on their faces, and their emotions are difficult to calm down. For the first time, they have experienced the pressure brought by this dark realm. 2 million achieving the position of immortality in just a few years represents unparalleled talent and strength. In the fairyland, it is too difficult to achieve a true fairyland alongside immortality in just 2 million years. But now, the other party is just a genius who is dispatched at will is an existence of this level, which can't help but make many geniuses in the fairyland feel unparalleled pressure. Although this immortal creature from the dark realm is majestic and heroic, he has an evil talent. But now that someone from the other side has called the formation, the fairyland side will naturally not lose its reputation. 2 million years of practicing Taoism. Then I'll come. A confident voice sounded, and a talented man wearing black armor, with a handsome face and a slender figure stepped out, his clear eyes full of confidence. My name is Yin Long, and like you, I have practiced Taoism for 2 million years. This is an unparalleled genius in the immortal realm, and he is also the best among his generation in the immortal realm. Seeing that the genius in the dark realm is so rampant, he will naturally not sit back and watch, so he is the first to stand up. Yinlong. Good. It's Yinlong. With Yinlong's talent, even if you look at the younger generation in the fairyland, it's hard to find an opponent. There will definitely be no problem in dealing with this guy. The genius of our immortal realm is naturally unparalleled in talent and proud of the contemporary generation. Yinlong's initiative to fight made many geniuses on the side of the immortal realm excited and their hearts boiling. Yinlong is an extremely powerful genius. He was born in the Xianwang realm, but since he became famous, he has fought against his peers in the immortal realm, not only dominated among the younger generation of King Xian domain, he also gained a great reputation even in other immortal king domains. Seeing Yinlong go out to fight, even King Xian's eyes softened a little. Looking at the entire immortal domain, even if Yinlong's strength is he is not the strongest among his peers, but he is by no means an easy one. King Xian has personally tested his talent before. In King Xian's opinion, there should be no problem in standing up to fight against the dark territory side at this moment. Yinlong? He. On the side of the dark territory, the genius who stood up said coldly. Although he didn't say much, everyone could hear the disdain in his words. You don't need to be arrogant, I will kill you right now. Yinlong said calmly, with a confident light flashing in his eyes. Before you die, you can state your name to avoid becoming a nameless ghost. Even a dying person is worthy of saying this to me. The genius of the dark realm spoke, his words full of contempt. Unacceptable. Even before the actual competition, he felt like he was going to win. This guy should be taught a lesson. Come on, Yinlong, defeat him and show them the strength of our immortal genius. Many geniuses in the fairyland are excited, and they all wish they could take action on behalf of Yinlong and teach the arrogant people in this dark realm a lesson. Okay, since you want to die, then I will grant it to you. If you don't eat the toast, you will be fined with wine. Yinlong stopped shouting, and his heart was extremely angry. He finally couldn't bear it any longer and took the lead in the attack. He stepped forward, his armor clanking, and moved with him, like the sky leaning forward, attacking forward. And the genius of the dark realm didn't show the slightest panic when he saw this. Instead, he showed a cruel smile and moved forward to fight with Yinlong. The battle with the existence of the immortal realm can cut down the stars with just the aftermath. The battle between the two people started to get intense. The fighting was fierce to the extreme, blood was flying everywhere, and it was primitive and brutal to the extreme. However, the final result was beyond the expectations of many geniuses in the fairyland. The two just fought against each other. After a few rounds, the genius of the dark realm exploded with all his strength. Wang Yang Sun, the immortal power, directly suppressed Yinlong. And he seized the opportunity and exploded directly, stretched out his two arms, and directly tore Yinlong to pieces. The dragon's body, even the fairy gold armor failed to protect his body, was torn into two pieces. Then, one of his heads poked out and bit off Yinlong's head. Since then, the genius of the immortal domain, Yinlong, was completely defeated. No one thought that the first battle would have such a result. The powerful genius of the immortal domain came to fight, but even the person who walked out of the other side at random was killed. He has never been defeated before, and he was defeated so fiercely and simply. Fantasy, I am the big boss behind the scenes. Author, Guanyun Taoist. Chapter 215. Oh my God. Yinlong died, it's unbelievable. Are they really that strong? Yinlong's death directly shocked the geniuses of the immortal realm, making them take a breath of air conditioning and feeling as if a basin of cold water had been poured into their hearts. Yinlong is the most powerful genius of his generation in the immortal realm. Such a genius not only failed, but also failed so miserably. This simply broke the illusions and pride of the geniuses in the immortal realm, making them feel like they were falling into a cold ice cave. Is this the so-called genius of the immortal realm? Haha, that's all. After Yinlong died, the alien creature smiled cruelly, arrogantly, and wantonly, and his eyes were casually turned towards the remaining geniuses of the fairyland. That expression was like looking down at a group of geniuses from the fairyland, and he did not treat these geniuses at all. Put it in your eyes. Trash, my name is Qinluo, and among my peers, I rank 20. The genius of the dark realm said cruelly, his words full of disdain. I thought that the genius of the immortal realm could excite me a little bit, but I didn't expect that they are just some chickens and dogs, but they are so vulnerable. Qianluo's words were simply the most naked provocation, but they left many talented people in the immortal realm speechless. After all, Yinlong was killed by him so simply, and now all his words are pale and weak. No matter how much you say, it can't be as great a deterrent as the other party's killing of Yinlong. Besides, the genius who ranked 20 among his peers in the dark realm killed Yinlong so easily. This is what makes the immortal realm the most terrifying. A place where the geniuses of one side are timid and fearful. However, Yinlong's death was just a warm-up for the opening. After that, several geniuses from the dark realm stepped forward to call for battle. I have been practicing for 1,000,000 years, and I am ranked 13th among my peers. Who will die? The wastes of the immortal realm pretend to be geniuses. Haha, come here and die, killing you is as easy as crushing a group of bugs. These geniuses from the dark territory yelled with disdain, completely ignoring the geniuses from the immortal domain. They are all terrifying, no less than Qianluo who fought before. What's even more terrifying is that looking at them, the eyes that looked at the geniuses of the immortal realm were filled with the excitement of encountering prey. It seemed that they did not take these geniuses of the immortal realm in their eyes, but were just the prey they hunted. Faced with this provocation, the immortal naturally, it was impossible for the domain side to back down, and several geniuses came forward to ask for a fight. In the end, 3 outstanding ones were selected to fight bloody battles with these 3 foreign creatures. Kill them and promote the reputation of my fairyland. How dare you make such a noise, teach them a lesson. Kill them and avenge Yinlong. On the day when he became famous, today, if he kills the genius of the dark realm, he will definitely be remembered in history, and his journey in this world is worthy of it. Many geniuses were excited and couldn't help cheering for the few people who went to battle, hoping that they could defeat the geniuses of the dark realm and reverse the situation of the war. However, just a moment later, the shouts of the crowd stopped abruptly, and almost everyone's faces were filled with dull and unbelievable looks. Because all 3 battles ended, and the results were extremely tragic. All the geniuses on the side of the fairyland failed, and no one won. And the geniuses in the dark territory, the method of victory was effortless, just like a joke. One person had his head cut off, another person had his body torn into pieces, and another person was killed on the spot. Not even a bit of bone, blood, or a corner of his battle clothes was left behind. Completely wiped from the world. Is this the so-called genius of the immortal realm? How weak! If they are all opponents like this and the chasm opens, we alone can defeat this place without the need for all our forces to mobilize. The wanton ridicule caused the fairyland side to fall into incomparable silence. They were defeated in 4 battles, and all were miserably defeated. Any rebuttal was pointless and meaningless. At the moment, there is only one genius who can sweep the opponent. Only in this way can we truly regain the lost place on the side of the immortal domain. For a time, the atmosphere on the side of the immortal domain was extremely depressing. Even King Xian's face was as dark as water. Although the battle is not over yet, even with the current results, it has already made him feel a little unbearable. Moreover, he knows that even if the remaining geniuses all go to fight, I am afraid the outcome will not change much. The strength of the younger generation of creatures in the dark realm is really too strong, far beyond his expectation. The genius of the immortal realm is vulnerable to a single blow. It was in vain that I had waited so long. My name is Tian Hao, I have been practicing for 500,000 years, and I am ranked 3rd among my peers. The rest of the geniuses from the immortal realm, please come together to save yourself from wasting time. I will fight with you all. While the geniuses on this side of the immortal realm were still immersed in the shock of 4 consecutive defeats, on the other side of the foreign land, another creature came out from behind the golden sacred cow. His appearance was like a human, and his body was extremely strong. Holding a black tianj, the earth was trembling slightly as he walked, wrapped in endless black mist. More importantly, the careless and extremely contemptuous tone in his mouth did not put the fairyland side at all eyes, and threatened to let everyone come together. Boom, Tian Hao stepped forward, holding the tianj in his hand across the ground, like a demonstration, across the yellow sand ground covered with endless dead bones, instantly cutting open a bottomless and terrifying crack. Endless white bones turned into dust, and many corpses and broken armors buried in the depths of the era emerged, conveying the vast atmosphere of the years. Bian Huang Daiguan has existed for a long time, I don't know how many eras. And the struggle between the 2 worlds has lasted for eternity. Therefore, the land here has long been dyed red with blood, and there are so many creatures from both worlds buried in it that it is impossible to count them. However, after the tianj in Tian Hao's hand crossed the ground, something seemed to happen. There is a brilliant divine light emanating from the ground, like a brilliant sun, extremely shining and dazzling. What? Tian Hao was slightly surprised and moved his gaze towards the direction from which the light came. Vaguely, he seemed to see an ancient stele, inserted diagonally in the deepest part of the ground, as if it had been left behind countless epochs ago. He has been buried here for eternity, but now he reappears in the world because of his accidental collision. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Fantasy, I am the big boss behind the scenes. Author, Guanyun Taoist. Chapter 216. The vast Gobi Desert is full of yellow sand, and countless blood and bones are buried in it. The genius of the past has now turned into a handful of loess. Only a truly powerful being can leave a skeleton behind and bury it under the rolling yellow sand. I have to say, this is sad. After tens of thousands of years of cultivating Taoism, he became famous all over the world, but in the end he ended up in a bloody battlefield and died sadly, which is hard to accept. But now, because the tianj in Tian Hao's hand cuts off a corner of this majestic battlefield, it seems that a corner of the ruins from an unknown number of epochs ago has been revealed. It's just an ancient monument, it must be some relic from the past. Tianhao just glanced at the crack and then looked away. It was just a relic buried deep in the sand of time. If it was extremely precious, I am afraid it would have been taken back long ago, and it would not be allowed to be buried here. In particular, it can be seen that no matter what is buried underneath, it will not be too important. Tianhao stepped forward, pointed the tianj in his hand again, and moved towards the earth, wanting to remove everything in the crack, including the ancient monument. Destroyed. However, when his attack approached the ancient monument buried deep in the ground, something unexpected happened. An indescribable majestic aura suddenly rose from the ground. The ancient monument bloomed with unimaginable energy. The brilliance rises from the ground, like a blazing sun shining on the earth, shining in all directions. Fluctuations in the immortal king realm. The revival of the ancient steel finally shocked everyone present. Even the Xian king Dharmakaya had a look of surprise in his eyes. Because, on this ancient steel that suddenly appeared, it was actually stained with the spirit of the immortal king realm. Breath. It seems that this ancient heavenly monument was created by a being in the immortal king realm in the past. King Xian felt this way, and others felt it naturally even stronger. The unparalleled pressure of the immortal king filled the air and radiated in all directions. If it were not for the immortality under Wang Anran's decree to protect each other, I am afraid that all the creatures in the dark realm have already knelt down. But even so, their eyes when looking at the ancient monument were full of surprise and shock. Who would have thought that? How could Tianhao reveal such a secret with a casual blow? A relic left by a being in the immortal king realm. Tianhao was startled at first, and then his face showed a look of shock. He never thought that his casual blow would lead to such a result. Strange, on the ancient monument, the aura of the king of our world and the aura of the immortal king of the immortal realm actually coexist, and there are two fonts engraved on it. Could it be that they were left by the immortal king of our world and the immortal king of the immortal realm in the past? The golden sacred cow looked at the ancient sky monument, its eyes flashed, and guessed. On this ancient sky monument, it felt two completely different supreme auras, one belonging to the realm of darkness. The immortal king. The other belongs to the immortal king of the immortal realm. In addition to this ancient stele, there are divine inscriptions from both realms, which is enough to prove that this ancient heavenly stele seems to be the former immortal king and immortal king. What the kings left together. An ancient monument created by the immortal king and the immortal king. Xianwang Dharma body shook his head slightly. In his life of dozens of epochs, he had never encountered or heard of such a thing. This is enough to prove that this heavenly monument has existed for much longer than he imagined. It is very likely that it comes from the almost disappeared history before the immortal realm was almost extinct. What is inscribed on this ancient heavenly monument? For a time, even King Xian began to pay attention to the inscriptions on this ancient heavenly monument. He became curious about the content. After all, it came from a period of history that had almost disappeared, and was related to the powerful immortal king realm, which was enough to interest him. On the ancient heavenly tablet, the divine inscriptions were like rounds of bright stars. Like the sun, it attracts attention. Although the font form is slightly different from today's, it is roughly the same. After some identification, you can still identify the content of these sacred texts. A fight to the death between the two worlds, a monument to the eternal genius. Behind the golden sacred cow, a foreign prodigy looked at the ancient monument and murmured the contents on the monument. Everyone else, after some investigation, also figured out the identity of this ancient monument. In the past, I don't know how long ago, between the dark realm and the immortal realm, there was a showdown between the geniuses like today, but it was much crueler and more tragic than today. The true geniuses of both worlds participated in the battle, and the immortal king and the immortal king came to observe the battle in person. And finally, based on the results of this battle, this eternal monument of genius was built. What is engraved on the inscription is naturally the ranking of the geniuses who participated in the battle of geniuses in the past. Only the Eternal Genius Monument can leave its name on it. This is a proof of strength and talent, and it is also a supreme honor. Eternal Genius Monument. Haha, the only ones who can leave their names on it are the creatures in our world. That's right, the creatures in the immortal realm are so weak. Even if they are both geniuses, they are still far from the geniuses in our world. What qualifications do they have to be named one of them? Watching the rankings, I can't wait to see the so-called geniuses in the fairyland reveal their true colors. Many foreign geniuses sneered and couldn't wait to look at the ancient names on the monument. Every name is a piece of history and represents a glorious past. There is a faint aura above each name. By circulating around, one can tell whether the person whose name is left is the genius of the immortal realm or the genius of the dark realm. The geniuses of the immortal realm just glanced at the monument, and their hearts felt cold. Because among those densely packed among the names, at first glance, most of them have some dark aura, and only a few contain the aura of the fairyland. And those names that contain the aura of the fairyland are basically at the bottom of this list. The result undoubtedly does not make these geniuses of the immortal realm feel despair. Is it already destined that the immortal realm will not be able to defeat the foreign realm? This was true countless epochs ago, and it is the same now. Sure enough, as I expected, the so-called geniuses in the fairyland are nothing more than local chickens and dogs. Many geniuses from the dark realm sneered unscrupulously, expressing their disdain. However, just as they sneered, a name slowly emerged on the sky monument, and began to shine, emitting unparalleled fluctuations. That name is above all the names in the sky monument, as if he is alone, standing on the clouds, looking down at the geniuses of the two worlds. That name has only one simple word. It is called, Huang. Fantasy, I am the big boss behind the scenes. Author, Guanyun Taoist. Chapter 217. On the monument, the names of the geniuses from both worlds have been left. And based on the results of the battle between the geniuses of the two worlds, the rankings were determined, ranking on top of the ancient monument. But now, there is a name that hangs high above all the geniuses, in the independent clouds. This is a silent shock and a proof of strength. Many geniuses are lined up together, but this one person stands above all others and can see all the mountains and small mountains at a glance. It is enough to prove that this being named Huang was definitely the most talented person of his generation in both worlds. Of course, what excites many geniuses in the immortal realm even more is that there is a faint fairy light flowing on the word Huang. This is enough to prove that many epochs ago, this genius named Huang belonged to the immortal realm, not the dark realm. Shortage. Countless epochs ago, was such a genius really born in our fairyland? This ancient steel was made by a being in the immortal king realm. How could it be fake? If it is true, it is enough to prove that the creatures in my fairyland are not inferior to this dark realm, which is an unspeakable excitement and encouragement. The geniuses on the immortal territory side are very excited, sweeping away the low morale just now. An ancient sky monument suddenly appeared, recording the long history before the endless era, but if this history is true, it will undoubtedly have a great impact on the immortal territory side. It greatly boosts morale. On the dark realm side, the reaction of many talented people is exactly the opposite. Shortage. Never heard of this name. An illusory guy who appears out of nowhere and is above all the geniuses in our world? I do not believe. Haha, maybe it's just something that these people in the fairyland imagined in order to put some money on their faces. What a wasteland! If we were in the contemporary era, I would kill them with one palm of my hand. The geniuses in the dark territory are very disdainful and do not believe that what is recorded on this ancient monument is true. What a waste, it is just what is recorded on an ancient monument. Who can prove that this is true? The only thing they believe in is that the geniuses of the dark realm must be superior to the geniuses of the immortal realm. Therefore, the ranking inscribed on this ancient heavenly monument is simply a joke. Perhaps, the other rankings are true, but this flaw may have been engraved on it by the latecomers themselves. A genius from the dark realm said coldly, causing many other people to nod. Yes, this is the only explanation that is the most reasonable. Except for this Huang, the ranking order of other heavenly monuments is in line with these dark realm the views of the geniuses. Perhaps, this Huang is just a latecomer. The ignorant and fearless engraved his own name on this ancient monument without authorization. Oh, it's really arrogant. It's a pity that we are not in the contemporary era. If we were in the contemporary era, I would definitely make him pay the price. Tian Hao snorted coldly, held the tianj in his hand, and was about to challenge the genius of the immortal realm. However, at this moment, the majestic crack opened by him suddenly exploded, and the crystal bones flew up and scattered around. Those are the bones from countless epochs ago. They have long been dimmed, and most of them have even decayed. They are buried next to this ancient monument. Now with the birth of the monument, it also appeared in front of everyone. When after these bones appeared, the geniuses of the dark realm finally changed their colors. No other, because the owners of these bones all belong to the dark realm. Whether it is the shape of these bones or the aura contained in them, they all belong to the darkness. The realm. And such a long time in the past can still leave traces of existence in the world. The former owners of these bones are probably existences in the immortal realm. Moreover, these bones are buried in disorder next to the sky monument. It is very likely that this place it was the place where the geniuses of the two worlds had a decisive battle in the past. The owners of these bones were the losers in the decisive battle. But how could this be possible? The overall strength of the dark domain side was obviously superior to that of the immortal domain. The result of the decisive battle was darkness. The domain side left behind the bones of many geniuses, while the fairyland side had almost no losses. This result is undoubtedly unacceptable to many geniuses in the dark domain. In other words, they simply don't want to believe that this is true. If the absurdity is true, all this makes sense. At this moment, a genius from the dark realm was suddenly startled and thought of this possibility. Only in this way can all this be explained. Huang Weijin is superior to many geniuses in the dark realm, and defeated many geniuses in the dark realm, leaving only a skeleton. Only in this way can we explain why this place is full of corpses of the geniuses of the dark realm, while there are very few corpses belonging to the immortal realm. What a waste! I don't believe it. How can there be such a genius in the fairyland? It's all nonsense. Tian Hao said angrily, pointing the sky sword horizontally in his hand, and waved it towards the ancient monument. He wants to destroy this monument. And these meaningless discussions. On the side of the fairyland, King Xian raised his eyebrows, and just wanted to stop him, but at this moment, he seemed to see something, a hint of surprise flashed in his eyes, and then he stopped his movements. Because, that ancient sky monument seemed to notice Tian how his actions were actually glowing. Especially the word desolate engraved on it was blooming with unparalleled brilliance. Along with the light, there was also a supreme aura of supremacy. True name manifestation. On the side of the dark territory, the golden sacred cow changed its expression for the first time when it saw this. The immortal king exists in the realm and possesses all kinds of incredible divine powers. Those who chant its name can be sensed by it, or their thoughts will follow, no matter how far away they are. Now, it is just a name engraved on the ancient monument, and it has been an unknown amount of time. But now, this name is shining, as if it is communicating with the Supreme Being who is reviving. General. Extremely weird. Could it be said that this Huang is not dead yet? Just when this idea popped into the mind of the golden god cow, the word Huang suddenly bloomed with unparalleled brilliance. Immediately afterwards, A ray of light passed by. A majestic figure dressed in white as snow appeared on the battlefield. His eyebrows were drawn into his temples, his eyes were as bright as stars, and his black hair was casually draped behind his shoulders. He was none other than Huang. Fantasy, I am the big boss behind the scenes. Author, Guanyun Taoist. Chapter 218. A young man suddenly appeared in front of the ancient monument, causing shock in all directions. All eyes and attention were focused on him. The eyes were full of disbelief. Real body? No, it is not the real body, but the traces of Tao and Dharma engraved on this heavenly monument, in the name of Huang, now appear, singing together with the heaven and earth, and turning into this body. The divine light in King Xian's eyes was brilliant, and he understood the result immediately. What appeared in front of him was not the real wilderness, but the intertwined traces of Dao marks and laws engraved in the name in the past, which now resonate with the heaven and earth. Reappeared in the human world. But even so, this is amazing enough. It is just a name, and the Tao contained in it actually manifested and reappeared in its true form after an unknown number of epochs. However, after sensing the emanation from this desolate body, after the aura, King Xian couldn't help but frown. This aura of desolation is probably at the supreme realm at the pinnacle of humanity, and has not reached the realm of true immortals. And even now, among the geniuses gathered in the two realms, there are many true immortals. The existence of the fairyland. There is an insurmountable gap between the two realms, the true fairyland and the supreme realm. The existence of the supreme realm cannot be the opponent of the existence of the true fairyland. But now, judging from the reappearance of this figure, the former in the duel between Bian Huang and the geniuses of the dark realm, Huang only had the cultivation level of the supreme realm. With this cultivation level, how on earth could he defeat the many geniuses of the dark realm? You know, those bones buried around the ancient heavenly monument, but there is no shortage of existences in the immortal realm, and there are quite a lot of them. As the supreme humanity, rebel against the immortal realm of true immortals? King Xian found it unbelievable. Could it be said that those dead creatures in the immortal realm in the dark realm were not the actions of Wang? King Xian discovered knowing this, many geniuses in the dark realm naturally discovered it. How could a person with a mere supreme level of cultivation be superior to all the top geniuses in the dark realm? There must be something wrong with the ranking on this heavenly monument. Shortage? It turned out to be a trick of pretending to be a ghost. Tian Hao sneered, and the shock that just emerged in his heart disappeared in an instant. He raised his arm casually, pointing the tianj forward in his hand, and slashed towards the place where Huang was. Regardless of what he thought, whether it is the real body or the phantom, Tian Hao slashes it with one strike, destroying everything into ashes and erasing the last thoughts of many talented people in the fairyland. Brush. Tian Hao cuts across, and the brilliant golden light shines in the sky flashed past, as if it was about to split the sky and split the earth. The ancient Tianji, like an indestructible sharp war spear, ran rampant without hindrance, cutting the sky and splitting the earth. The divine light was bright, and the killing intent split the sky, and it moved towards the place where Huang stood mightily. The area was swept away, looking at Wushuan, to destroy everything. Tian Hao, as a genius who rose to fame in the dark realm, has now reached the level of immortality. And the figure of Huang that emerged only exuded the supreme power. It's just a fluctuation in the realm. With this blow, if an ordinary supreme realm comes, it will be wiped out in an instant. However, facing Tian Hao's devastating blow, Huang was very calm. He simply raised his palm, Tianji swung at Tian Hao and swatted away, the nine-color divine flames around him rose up, distorting the void, as if it was going to burn through the sky. His eyes were even calmer and indifferent, and fairy lights rose up, he is set off in it, as if a true immortal has come to the dust, and does not disturb the dust. The palm of his hand is slowly pushed forward, which seems simple and ordinary, but it contains unimaginable majestic power. Many geniuses in the fairyland, even if they are far apart, are just looking at it. I felt a sense of fright. Arrogant. However, in the face of all this, Tian Hao let out an angry groan, and his men couldn't help but move faster. He is just a supreme, so it's okay if he dares to be his enemy. Now he is just using his flesh palm as his enemy. This is completely in contempt of his own cultivation and strength. Even without realizing it, Tian Hao increased the power of this move. He wanted to kill the arrogant guy in front of him in one blow. In order to let these people in the fairyland know, the majesty of the dark realm cannot be violated. You are just a little supreme, but you still want to defy the heavens. Buzz. The bright Ge Feng's light pierced the sky, like the sun setting in the east, attracting everyone's attention. And seeing the wilderness after greeting him with his meat palm, many geniuses in the immortal realm could not help but show unbearable expressions. Although Huang was not a person of the current world, he was just a trace of Taoism that emerged from the heavenly monument. But after all, he was also the former immortal realm. Tian Xiao, now facing Tian Hao, if he loses miserably, it will be an unimaginable blow to the immortal realm side. Kill this arrogant guy? How can the majesty of our domain be violated? He's just a supreme being, but he still dares to be an enemy of immortality. Haha, is this the supreme genius of the immortal realm in the past? So weak, it can be destroyed with the flip of a palm. It's just a remnant soul from hundreds of millions of years ago, but it's also a delusion to defy the will of heaven? Haha, it seems that the immortal realm was so weak in the past, even worse than it is today. I'm afraid, in the immortal realm at that time, those who could cultivate to the supreme realm were considered extremely talented, right? On the side of the dark territory, many geniuses sneered, as if they had already seen the final outcome. However, when Wang's flesh palm collided with the tianj in Tian Hao's hand, the result of this battle was truly revealed. But all the sounds disappeared, as if someone had strangled the throat, and became silent. Tian Hao flew out with blood, and the blood flowed horizontally, and the tianj in his hand was broken into two pieces. But Huang on the other side was unscathed. He didn't even take a step back. He just stood there quietly, as if looking at enemies from all directions. With just one blow, Tian Hao was defeated miserably. It's even more unbelievable. What's more, from the beginning to the end, Wang's body exudes the fluctuations of the supreme realm. At the peak of human nature, he retrogradely defeats immortals. This scene, even King Xian, feels unparalleled shock. Because this breaks the common sense, even if he is in the immortal king realm, the existence of the world cannot be understood. Between the supreme realm and the true immortal realm, is it more than just a natural chasm? They are simply two different forms of life, and there is no possibility of reversal. But now, this scene has appeared. I don't know how many epochs ago. The famine reappears, and we go retrograde to defeat the immortals. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Fantasy, I am the big boss behind the scenes. Author, Guanyun Taoist. Chapter 219. You receive shocking points from King Xian Plus. You receive shock points from the immortal King Enron Plus. You receive shocking points from the immortal King Yuchuo Plus. You receive shocking points at 888-8445 from the Golden God Cow. You receive from. On the edge of the immortal realm, beside the battlefield between the two realms, Qin Mu, who was hiding aside, could not help but feel a hint of surprise in his eyes when he heard the sound of harvesting shocking points. What surprised him was naturally not the shocking points he received. After all, it makes perfect sense for the immortal king realm to exist and provide tens of millions of shock points. What made him slightly surprised was the person who provided the shock points for this harvest. In addition to King Xian, There are also two immortal kings from the Dark Realm. What is this concept? It shows that in the Dark Realm, although there is no immortal king coming here now, there are always two immortal kings, silently paying attention to all the trends here. The golden sacred cow just said that Enran, the immortal king, has important matters for the time being and cannot come. But now, two immortal kings witnessed everything that happened here and provided Chinmu with shock points. This is enough to prove that there are two immortal kings of the Dark Realm who have been paying attention to this place. The two immortal kings have been paying attention to this place, but they have never appeared. This is worth pondering. It seems that the arrangements I made before are necessary and interesting. I hope these two immortal kings of the Dark Realm will not disappoint me. Chinmu turned his head and looked at the chasm that covered the world. A flash of color that he was under control flashed in his eyes. Just setting up a secret realm in the wild world naturally does not require spending 800 million shock points. This time only a corner of the secret realm arranged by Chinmu has been revealed. There are even more powerful secret realms that have not been revealed. But these secret realms are not prepared for the geniuses of the Dark Realm present. They are not qualified. These secret realms, prepared for those immortal kings of the Dark Realm. Now we have to see whether these guys will take the bait. How can it be? Tianhao flew out upside down, his eyes widened, and he couldn't believe it at all. How is this possible? He actually lost, and he was defeated at the hands of a fairyland supreme whose realm was far inferior to his own. Although he has only been cultivating Taoism for a short period of time, he ranks third among his contemporaries and possesses the cultivation level of the immortal realm. Even in the Dark Realm, he is a famous genius of his generation and is even praised by the Supreme Immortal King. He valued him and might be accepted as a disciple. But now, a genius from the immortal realm who didn't know where appeared from nowhere, but who was countless years away from now, knocked him back with one blow and seriously injured him. Tianhao was even more shocked. What is unacceptable is that this person's cultivation level is obviously only the Supreme Realm. Using the Supreme Realm to fight against immortality in retrograde motion. This is simply impossible and an iron law that cannot be broken. Doesn't this mean that his strength too weak? Does the cultivation level of this immortal realm have any water? How can this be? Tianhao is really invincible. This person really only has the cultivation level of the Supreme Realm. How is it possible to defeat Tianhao? Could it be that he was negligent? That's not right. There is a huge chasm between the Supreme and the Immortal. Even if you are careless, it will not be like this at all. It's so weird. The Supreme Realm went against Immortal, and actually injured Immortal. This person is really weird. Many geniuses on the Dark Domain side were shocked. What happened before them was completely beyond their expectations and cognition. It was something they had never imagined. Tianhao was unwilling to accept it and roared forward, wanting to conquer again and defeat Huang, regain the face he had lost before. But the result made his heart feel cold. Huang was still free and easy, and simply beat him backwards. His defeat was even worse than the last time. I don't believe it, I don't believe it. The pain on his body and the blow in his heart made Tianhao almost crazy. Why? He is an existence in the immortal realm. He can't defeat an existence in the humane supreme realm. This is hard for him to accept and cannot understand. Tianhao was in disbelief and couldn't accept it, but Wang's movements did not stop there. He spread out his white clothes and casually slapped a palm in the direction where Tianhao flew backwards. Boom! He waved his palms like a blazing sun in the west. Falling, like the heaven falling, there is an unstoppable feeling of supreme oppression. That feeling is as simple as a hunter crushing a prey, full of oppression, simply suffocating. Tianhao even had no time at all after dodging, he was hit by this palm, and then his consciousness became blurred. Because of the incomparably powerful power contained in that palm, all his blood and bones were evaporated in an instant and disappeared from the world. The powerful immortal, a living being, can be reborn with only a drop of blood. But at this moment, Huang's palm contained unimaginable power, which evaporated all of Tianhao's blood and flesh almost instantly, leaving nothing at all. Naturally also cut off the possibility of Tianhao's rebirth. He fell so simply, without even the slightest struggle. In an understatement, he destroyed the immortal. At this moment, on the edge of the fairyland, on the battlefield of the two realms, everything was silence. All eyes are focused on Wang's body, with an unimaginable look of shock. With the body of the Supreme, fight against the immortal creatures. Kill the immortals with a snap of your fingers. Desolate, endless years ago, did such a monster really exist in our fairyland? Even King Xian can't help but be filled with shock. Fantasy, I am the big boss behind the scenes. Author, Guanyun Taoist. Chapter 220. As a result of the battle, there was silence in the direction of the Dark Realm. All the comments and scornful voices seemed to be choked by someone in an instant and disappeared without a trace. But the previously silent side of the immortal realm was now shouting loudly, and everyone's face was filled with emotion and excitement. Huang defeated Tianhao, and the victory was so clean and tidy. This was simply a bad breath for the immortal realm side. Moreover, the victory of this battle was like a shot in the arm, bringing confidence to many talented people in the immortal realm. It turns out that countless years ago, there was such a supreme talent in the immortal realm. They regarded the geniuses in the dark realm as if they were nothing, and they were defeated by the enemy in a desperate situation. However, Tianhao's death caused a brief moment of silence in the dark territory, but it more aroused their ferocity. Just a moment later, a huge figure shrouded in billowing black mist stood up. How dare a guy who has been dead for tens of thousands of years pretend to be a ghost here? It was an extremely burly figure, with thick limbs, like four pillars supporting the sky. The whole body was as black as jade, except for a pair of eyes that were the purest red color. Dark Idol. Well, if the Dark Elephant takes action, he will definitely be able to capture it. This behemoth was dispatched, instantly attracting a sound of admiration and encouragement from the direction of the Dark Realm. It was an extremely majestic figure, extremely huge, giving people an indescribable sense of oppression. The Dark Idol is darkness. A most powerful bloodline in the domain. Although it is not as good as the descendants of the immortal king, it is still a very powerful bloodline. The descendants of this bloodline are almost all invincible beings in the same realm. And this one in front of me, the Dark Elephant, is the best among them. It is so powerful and terrifying that even the previous Tianhao is definitely not his opponent. Although it is the same as the previous Tianhao and has the same generation ranking, the two have the combat power is completely different. The Dark Elephant has practiced for 500,000 years more than Tianhao, and is now an immortal strongman. And his combat power also makes many geniuses here in the immortal realm feel frightened. Roar! The Dark Elephant soared into the sky, its trunk stretched across the sky, and swept across the 10 directions, causing the void to collapse. And he screamed angrily, and his four hooves vibrated, just like the four poles of heaven and earth. When he stepped on the void, he actually formed there is an ancient barrier. Within the barrier, the void is shattered and chaos surges, looming over the wilderness. It's a divine elephant barrier, and it's really real as soon as it comes up. That's how it should be, destroy it with one blow. Look how arrogant he still is. I haven't seen the divine elephant barrier in I don't know how many years, but now I see it here. Haha, this genius from the immortal realm will have no regrets even if he dies. Someone in the dark realm recognized this move and couldn't help but laugh. Divine elephant barrier is the famous skill of Dark Elephant. Once, he used this move to encompass the world, refine everything, and create life. He trapped one of his great enemies in it and finally refined it into nothingness, which shocked his contemporaries. However, facing such a fierce attack from the Dark Elephant, Huang showed no sign of panic. This time, he just kept quiet. He raised a finger and pointed directly at the hooded idol barrier. Boom! As soon as he pointed it out, it was as if it had turned into the only thing in the entire world, shaking the years and making everything change. Eclipsed. At this moment, that finger seemed to have become the only thing in the eyes of all living beings, and became the only existence imprinted in their memories. The miraculous idol barrier blown by the creatures in the dark realm, in front of this finger, but like ice and snow under the scorching sun, it melted away quickly and was extremely fragile. Then, this finger continued unabated and was directly imprinted on the huge body of the dark elephant, causing its body to tremble violently. And then exploded violently, just like Tianhao before, completely turning into nothingness. Instant kill. Another instant kill. Just like the scene just happened again, after Tianhao, even the dark gods who were much more powerful than him could not escape from being killed. The fate of being killed instantly. Next. Huang opened his mouth, his voice still calm, but in the ears of many geniuses from the dark realm, it was like the soul-inducing sound of hell, making them feel afraid. Haoshan, dark elephant. These two are among the top of their generation. All existences were instantly killed by this single palm of the hand. Why is his fighting power so strong? The geniuses of the dark realm were shocked, but at this moment, no one dared to retreat, and they could only move forward bravely. Tongzhan compared with death, the consequences of falling into the prestige of the dark realm are definitely far more serious than dying in battle. Next. The calm and ruthless voice sounded again. One after another, the strong men from the dark realm were caught in the wilderness and fought with him. In the end, they were all killed one by one. The blood dyed the vast yellow sand under her feet red. On the side of the immortal realm, many geniuses watched with excitement. What kind of scene is this? One person fights against the younger generation of the dark realm alone. If this news is spread back to the immortal realm, I am afraid it will cause a sensation in the entire immortal realm. The only one, it is a pity that this person who can stand alone against many geniuses in the dark realm is not a person from the immortal realm in this world, but the manifestation of a supreme genius from the immortal realm countless years ago. But even so, it still brought an unparalleled shock. In any case, the dark territory is in trouble today. The plan to attack the immortal territory side has not been completed, but it has hurt itself. And the root of everything comes from Huang. On the immortal territory side, many geniuses are inspired, and even King Xian's face couldn't help but become a little more relaxed. The scroll of the immortal king's decree hanging above the head of the golden sacred cow suddenly bloomed with unparalleled brilliance. Like a black sun, hanging in the sky above, it shines in all directions. At the same time, the eternal chasm began to vibrate slightly. Haha, King Xian, I'm here to keep the appointment. A calm and cold voice sounded in the dark realm behind the chasm, making King Xian suddenly startled. Safely. King Xian looked at the constantly trembling barrier, his eyes extremely serious. He knew that the owner of that voice came from the supreme being in the dark realm. Immortal King, and ran.